Welcome to Guru Gedara, and today we have Miss Niranji with us. Hello Miss Niranji, how are you?
Hello Miss Suchitra, fine, thank you.
And hope our children are staying safe and happy today. And Miss Niranji, I have something really interesting for you today. Children, look at this. This is a boy called Pawan, and these are interesting facts about him. Now, will you be able to read these interesting facts? This is really interesting, Miss Niranji. Can you please read it for us?
Yeah, sure, let's see. This is Pawan, right? He's a cute boy.
Yes.
Right. Pawan is a boy. Pawan is tall. Pawan is dark. Pawan has short hair. Pawan loves his parents. Pawan plays football. Pawan can play the guitar.
So this is really interesting. Did you listen to this, children?
Is it really interesting?
I think it's interesting facts about Pawan.
No, I don't think so.
But why?
Pawan is a boy, Pawan is tall, Pawan is dark, Pawan has short hair and Pawan everywhere. It's not interesting. You have written Pawan in every sentence.
So Pawan is not interesting.
No.
So
you could have used some other word instead of Pawan.
Right, so what is the word then?
Something like he, Pawan is a boy, he is tall, he is dark, he has short hair, he loves his parents, he plays football. Pawan can play the guitar, you can use it at the end, it's okay, but not everywhere.
Alright, so that means instead of Pawan, I have to also call he. I have to use the word he. Right, I understand. Children, did you understand? Instead of repeating Pawan there, the subject there, you can also say he. So you can, if you're talking about a girl, you can say she. About an animal, you can say it. Likewise, you have these, what are these words called? He, she, it, we, they, you. Yes, you know them. They are pronouns. Very right. Now, Miss Niranji, as you told me, we can use he there instead of Pawan. So, what is a pronoun, children? You already have learnt this.
Shall I tell you what a pronoun is?
Yes, please.
A pronoun is a word that is used instead of a noun. Pronouns are often used to take the place of a noun to avoid repeating the noun.
That's right. As Miss Niranji told me, advised me, we don't have to repeat the noun if you use a pronoun. Right, hope you get it. There are different types of pronouns. Maybe you have learnt them, or in higher grades you will learn them as well. So children, you can see the board now, the screen now. Miss Niranji, will you be able to teach these types of pronouns to them?
Of course, I will. Personal pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, interrogative pronouns, relative pronouns and reflexive pronouns.
Alright, so today children, we are going to learn what is that. Yes, that is highlighted in this relative pronouns. You are right. Relative pronouns is our lesson today, Miss Niranji.
Yes,
right.
That's good.
This is what you are going to learn. Look at the board. Relative pronouns. So the very first activity today, this is not an activity. Children, this is a very small task you are going to do with us. Are we going to help them, Miss Niranji?
Yes, I'll read
All right.
the phrases in the left hand side.
All right.
Pawan is a boy, the film, the lady, the cake, this is Kasun. And in the other side, there are phrases, whose brother went to school with me, which I ate was yummy, whom you met is my aunt, that we watched yesterday was interesting, who loves his parents.
All right, children. So this is what you are going to do. You have to make meaningful sentences, right? All right. Even if you do not think about relative pronouns for now, that is all right. What I want you to do is to match these two parts of the sentences. All right. Will you give it a try? Make meaningful sentences. Are we going to help them as well?
Yes, of course.
All right. Pawan is a boy.
who loves his parents.
Okay. The film.
That we watched yesterday was interesting.
The film that we watched yesterday was interesting. Yes, that is a meaningful sentence. The lady.
The lady whom you met is my aunt.
All right. What about the cake? What about the cake?
The cake which I ate was yummy.
Yes, that is meaningful. This is Kasun.
This is Kasun, whose brother went to school with me.
All right. So hope you also have made these meaningful sentences. These are the sentences you made.
Pawan is a boy who loves his parents. The film that we watched yesterday was interesting. The lady whom you met is my aunt. The cake which I ate was yummy. This is Kasun, whose brother went to school with me.
All right, children. You saw these words in the sentences. What were those words? Look at the screen. You saw who, that, whom, which, and whose. These are the words you saw in those sentences. Right? What are we going to do with these sentences? I mean, what are we going to do with these words now? What are the relative pronouns found in these sentences? So, the words we have just read are relative pronouns. Ms. Niranji, will you be able to read these for them?
Of course, who, whose, whom, which, and that. They are relative pronouns.
Okay. So, the most common relative pronouns in the English language that we are going to talk about today are who, whose, whom, which, and that. All right, miss? Children, hope you know the relative pronouns now. So, what is a relative pronoun? What is it?
A relative pronoun is a word which is used to refer to a noun mentioned previously.
It's like this. So, Pawan is a boy who loves his parents. Now, when you talk about Pawan, the relative pronoun there is who, and who refers to the subject there, that is Pawan. We are describing about Pawan. Now, what does a relative pronoun do? What is the role of a relative pronoun, Ms. Niranji?
A relative pronoun is used to connect a clause to a noun or a pronoun. The clause modifies or describes the noun.
Yes, Pawan is a boy who loves his parents. We are talking about Pawan and we are describing how Pawan acts. He loves his parents. He's a boy who loves his parents, right? All right, so we can use the relative pronouns as a connector as well. It connects clauses. Clauses are parts of sentences. Right, now these are the relative pronouns you have in your textbook. Ms. Niranji?
Yes, who, we use who with people, and whom is also used with people. Whose is used with possession, about someone's possession, and which with things, and that with people and things.
That's right. Also, children, textbook, where and when can also be considered as relative pronouns, right? Where to talk about a place and when to talk about a time. As you see on the screen, I have given a place, the bank, and you can see a clock there, right? To talk about place and time, you use the relative pronouns where and when. All right, now everything together here on the screen. Ms. Niranji?
Yes, who, whom, whose, which, that, where, and when. Who discusses, who refers to personal pronouns, and whom discuss about personal things again. Whose can be used to discuss personal and non-personal things, and which can be used with non-personal things again. That can be used with personal and non-personal things. Where with place, and when with time.
Yes, that's right. So, when you take the relative pronoun who, that is to talk about people. Whom is also to talk about people. That is why we have written there personal for who and personal for whom. Then we have whose to talk about personal, people, non-personal are the things, right? Which also to talk about things again. The word that, the relative pronoun that can be used for things and people. That is why you see personal and non-personal here. Where and when to talk about place and time. So remember these relative pronouns, and now we are going to see how we are going to use these relative pronouns. All right, children, what do you see here on the board now?
We can make clauses with relative pronouns.
Sure, that is really nice. We can make clauses with relative pronouns, right? They are not just words, we are making clauses, parts of sentences. Miss Niranji, children, what do you see on the board now? Who is that?
There's a girl and seems like she's a dancer.
The girl is a dancer. When you say the girl is a dancer, what is your answer? I mean, do you understand this, Miss Niranji?
Yes, I understand to a certain extent only. I need some explanation about the girl.
When you say the girl is a dancer, you will ask me, which girl, where? Right?
Yes.
So you're confused. Then that is why we have to use this part of the sentence. A relative clause will say, the girl who is on the screen is a dancer. Now is it clear, children? The description about the girl is clear when you use a relative clause. The relative clause, look at the board. The relative clause in that sentence is who is on the screen. We describe about the girl, and that makes it very clear for the listener. When we talk with a relative clause, when we write with a relative clause, it becomes clear. Right, very good. These are the examples we have for you using relative clauses. So note these relative clauses, Miss Niranji.
The boy who won the leadership award is in my brother's class. So the relative clause is who won the leadership award.
And that talks about the boy, that describes the boy.
The man who became rich is very humble. Who became rich is the relative clause. The lady whom you met is my aunt. Whom you met is the relative clause. The vase which you broke is very expensive. Which you broke is the relative pronoun.
And that describes the vase. All right. Some more examples here. The book that you want to buy is not available. That you want to buy is the relative clause, and that talks about the book.
The film that we watched yesterday was interesting. That we watched yesterday is the relative clause.
The office where my father works is very spacious. What is the relative clause there, children? Where my father works. That talks about the office my father works at, right?
Can you remember the day when you first went to school? There's a long relative clause. The day when you first went to school.
Right, that describes the day you went to school. So a relative clause is, please understand, children, that it is a
part of a sentence that starts with a relative pronoun.
Yes, that's right. So it's a part of a sentence. Clause is a part of sentence. Clause is a part of sentence that starts with a relative pronoun. Remember that very well. Then we have relative clauses. Miss Niranji, in December, we have some other clauses as well. What are those clauses? That's not grammar clauses. We have Santa clauses, right?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Right. So children, we are talking about grammar, right? So relative clauses, we have defining relative clauses and we have non-defining relative clauses in grammar, right? This is not a very hard task to understand. We'll simply make it clear for you, right? All right. So what are the two types?
Defining relative clauses and non-defining relative clauses.
That's right. Now, what is a defining relative clause?
We use a defining relative clause to show which particular person or thing we are talking about.
Right, example.
The girl who is on the screen is a dancer.
So to define the girl, to describe more about the girl, we have put a relative clause, and that defines the noun there. The girl is the noun. Right.
The relative clause who is on the screen identifies or describes the noun before that.
Yes, that's what we mentioned. These are the examples of defining relative clauses. To define, to describe the noun, we are using a defining relative clause. Ms. Niranji, can you read this for us?
Of course, the boy who won the leadership award is in my brother's class. Who won the leadership award is the defining relative clause.
That's right. So if you say, the boy is in my brother's class, without that relative clause, is it defined? Can we define the boy? Can we describe the boy?
No, of course not.
Yes, we can't do that, children. So we have to use a defining relative clause to talk about, to define the boy. That is why we call it defining relative clause. Very good.
The man whose son is a doctor is very humble. Whose son is a doctor is a defining relative clause again.
That's right. If you say the man is very humble, which man now? We do not know. It's confusing. Use the defining relative clause and define the man and say whose son is a doctor. Then we understand it very clearly, children.
The lady whom you met is my aunt. Whom you met is a defining relative clause.
That's right. The vase which you broke is very expensive. Which you broke is the defining relative clause. If you do not define, we'll say the vase is very expensive. Now, which vase is expensive? We do not know. The listener is very confused, right? All right, children, then what is a non-defining relative clause? Ms. Niranji?
We use non-defining relative clauses to give additional information or non-essential information about a person or a thing.
All right, so with defining clauses, you define, describe, and remember that is essential. Otherwise, we do not know whom we are talking about, what we are talking about. But children, in non-defining relative clauses, we give additional information. We give sometimes non-essential information about a person or thing that is not essential to use. We'll go to these examples and see, right? These are the examples.
Lasit, who is very tall, is a fast runner. Who is very tall is non-defining relative clause.
All right, if you say Lasit is a fast runner, that is simply enough to understand the boy, that Lasit is a fast runner. Do you have to say who is very tall? Whether he is tall or not, he is a fast runner. Right, Ms. Niranji?
Yes, we don't need that information actually.
Yes, so that is non-essential. That is why we call it non-defining relative clause.
Mala, whose parents are teachers, gave me a beautiful gift. Whose parents are teachers is a non-defining relative clause.
That's right. Children, even if you say, Mala gave me a beautiful gift, that is enough. You don't have to say whose parents are teachers. Even if the parents are doctors, even if the parents are lawyers or whatever, Mala gave me a beautiful gift. And that is why we call it a non-defining relative clause, because you have non-essential description there about Mala. We don't need it, right? All right, the next one.
Japan, where my uncle works, is a beautiful country. Where my uncle works is a non-defining relative clause.
Right, you don't need that information as well.
Our class teacher, who always comes to school early, is very kind. Who always comes to school is the non-defining relative clause.
All right, so who always comes to school is not a matter. So you can say our class teacher is very kind, right? We have more examples. Mrs. Silva, whom we always admire, is a beautiful lady. We can say Mrs. Silva is a beautiful lady, right? So ice cream is not very healthy to eat. We don't have to say which is very tasty. Whether it's tasty or not, anyway, it's not Very healthy to eat, children. All right. Then we have, this is over to you now. We will look at these and then select the correct relative pronoun and fill in the blanks. Shall we help them to do it? Ms. Niranji?
The golden palace, blank. The golden palace, blank. You have three words, whom, who and which. You saw in your dream is not real.
The farmers, blank, we met on our way grow tomatoes in Norelia. One of the answers she gave during the quiz was not correct. The teacher taught us English is a kind lady. The places in Sri Lanka, blank, we see ruins are historical places. Now we have to choose the correct relative pronouns, right?
The golden palace which you saw in your dream is not real. The farmers whom we met on our way grow tomatoes in Norelia. One of the answers that she gave during the quiz was not correct.
Right, which, whom, that are the relative pronouns there.
The teacher who taught us English is a kind lady. The places in Sri Lanka where we see ruins are historical places.
All right, who and where are the relative pronouns there. Now you are going to select the defining relative clause or the non-defining, right? Her brother who is fair works in a bank. The fish that is in the fridge is spoiled. Meena who loves animals has a pet dog. And you have,
do you know the man whose car was stolen? The grade 9 English textbook, which is green in color, has a lot of interesting lessons.
Here we are going to help you children. Her brother who is fair works in a bank. Who is fair? You don't have to say. Her brother works in a bank. You can simply say, right? So that is a non-defining relative clause.
The fish that is in the fridge is spoiled. It is a defining relative clause because we have to know which fish is we talking about.
So that is defining relative clause. Meena who loves animals has a pet dog. We can say Meena has a pet dog. We don't have to say who loves animals, right? So that is non-defining.
Do you know the man whose car was stolen? So it is a defining relative clause because we need that information to talk about the man.
That's right. The grade 9 English textbook, which is green in color, do you have to say that? Has a lot of interesting lessons. That is non-defining again. Right. Now this is what you learned today, children.
A relative pronoun is a word which is used to refer to a noun mentioned previously. A relative pronoun works as a connector between two clauses.
That's right. There are defining and non-defining relative pronouns. Also, we use a defining relative clause to show which particular person or thing we are talking about. Then we also learned, Ms. Niranji,
we use non-defining relative clauses to give additional information or non-essential information about a person or a thing. We use commas in non-defining relative clauses. Relative pronoun that is not used with non-defining relative clauses. So the children have learnt a lot today.
That is right. We are coming back with another lesson related to relative pronouns. Remember, children, these relative pronouns and try to use these in your language. So join hands with Guru Gedara on Rupavahini. And if you want to watch these programs again and again with your friends, teachers and parents, then their YouTube channel is Channel NIE. So stay blessed and wear the mask. Goodbye.
Goodbye.